Now, for you to understand how important this date is, you have to understand how explosive the crypto market has been so far. John, you remember the dot-com boom, right?
Oh, yeah, of course. I think everybody does. It was this major leap forward in technology, and it launched a decade-long bull market. And you know what's interesting about that, since you brought that up, Teeka? Looking back then, it seems obvious, but I remember back then, no one could have imagined how big and how fast our whole world would change because of it.
You hit an excellent point, John. It's really hard to recognize these massive shifts when you're in the middle of them. But anyone who was smart enough to pay attention, to set themselves up for this shift, had the chance to make a killing. Now, we haven't seen anything like it in over 20 years, this type of wealth creation. So if you missed it, this could be your second chance. If you missed the dot-com boom, this is your second chance. Because right now, it's like the early 90s of the dot-com boom, except now it's happening in crypto. And I'll be very clear, those aren't my words. This is coming from Mark Andreessen. Forbes calls this guy one of the most powerful people in tech. And he's on record saying crypto, a world-changing technology on the level of the internet. So what does that mean? Let me show you. Let's rewind to 1990. It's essentially day one for the internet. In a single decade, from 1990 to the year 2000, we go from essentially no one online to nearly half of the households in America surfing the internet. Now, you have to understand, this is gigantic, massive growth, faster than anything we've ever seen before in the history of the United States. In 10 years, we go from zero to over 100 million people online, and it was an all-out frenzy. And the companies that made it happen handed investors fortunes. In early 1990, Microsoft was trading for $1.21 a share, split adjusted. By the end of the decade, Microsoft soared to $120. Amazon shot up 5,350% in 3 years. John, we're talking about making 53 times your money in 3 years. America Online exploded 70,626%. And many more behind-the-scenes tech companies shot up even higher. Qualcomm soared 16,484%. EMC shot up more than 69,900%. And Dell, well, it exploded 120,000%. We're talking about turning $5,000 in 1990 to more than $6 million by the year 2000, by the end of the decade. And some experts are predicting crypto and the technology that makes it possible will be 10 to 100 times bigger than the internet.
Okay, but hold on a second, Teeka. I mean, in hindsight, these look fantastic, right? But these are some of the best performers of the 90s. That was over 20 years ago.
That's the problem, John. You see, most people ignore these transformational shifts while they're happening because they're in the middle of it, but they don't really see it. And it's a huge mistake. And I made the same mistake myself in the 90s. Here's what I learned. When it comes to technology, history always repeats itself. It happened with the railroads. It happened with energy. It happened with telecom. It happened with the auto industry. It happened with the internet every single time. In cryptocurrency, it's no exception. Here's what I mean, John. This is critically important for everybody watching right now. Every innovation that happens in a society follows what's called the adoption curve. It has 5 phases. And if you can understand this curve, you can get rich from technology. Phase 1 is innovation. This is when a brand new technology goes from an idea to a prototype stage. It's kind of the make it or break it moment. You know, many technologies will never make it out of this phase because they never gain mass appeal. Think of something like the Newton Apple, for instance. You never got out of phase 1. Phase 2 is the early adoption phase. And this is where investors, they just make a life-changing amount of money. They find a company with a breakthrough technology while it's still small, and the sky's the limit. Phase 3 is what is called the bandwagon phase. Now, at this point, the technology is showing serious growth, and the crowd is starting to wake up and starting to rush in. And phase 4 and 5 are what we call equilibrium. This is where everything slows down. At this point, practically everyone uses the technology, and unfortunately, the biggest profits have already been made. Now, understanding this simple diagram, I'll say it again, is critical to your success and to your financial future.
Teeka, let me ask you this. Where do you think we're at in the crypto market on this diagram that you're showing?
We're at the very end of phase 2, on the cusp of entering phase 3. The crowd is starting to rush in. And as we speak, we're moving from this early adoption stage into this hyper adoption phase. Today, over 100 million people own crypto, and you can use cryptocurrency to buy a car, a book, a plane ticket, pay your mortgage, even cover college tuition. It's now accepted at some of the world's biggest retailers, Whole Foods, Starbucks, Home Depot. You can even use it to buy tickets to your favorite pro sport, including the NHL, NFL, NBA, and MLB.